Everybody, Brian Good here with the latest on our weather pattern for, of course, the weekend and beyond. But I do want to at least touch base on the tropics. It's such a hot topic on social media, so it's not going to affect us. But for those of you who have friends or family there, or just generally science nerds in general, here's some of the data I've been looking at today. Still a tropical storm, but it's getting awful close to the category. This is the water vapor imagery showing the tremendous amount of moisture that is developing here on the eastern side in the southeast quadrant. That is where your strongest winds typically, by the way, do take place, is on the east northeast side as the winds are thrown up and around the actual spinning motion of that low. That is usually where we see the strongest wind fields take place, and usually this is the drier end, the west and northwest side. So a very classic look to this cyclone as it continues to develop. Okay, here are the buoy winds, which is kind of interesting because these can actually, they're real-time data signals being sent out, and you see we're getting gusts right now when the buoys are very close to that southeast quadrant at about 63 miles per hour. And along the beaches is where a lot of these buoys are getting gusts now, close to tropical storm force. This is the other system, by the way, out in the Atlantic that will be not a factor, by the way. All right, so let's see the track. This is the official track from the Hurricane Center. Again, winds right now for Hermine is 65 miles per hour. Tracking over southern Georgia. It's forecast to arrive as a hurricane after midnight tonight, Category 1, as we always say, or at least we always did when I lived in Charleston, South Carolina. It doesn't matter if it's a strong tropical storm or a weak hurricane. The effects are the same. Flooding, wind, storm surge. Flooding and storm surge, your bigger factors. And tornado threat, by the way, for Florida. Now, this is where it's a little touchy because it is going to track along the coastline. How far it gets into the Atlantic here is a little questionable, but the way that the terrain is set up, this is a very low-lying area. That's why they call this area of South Carolina, by the way, the low country for that reason. So as the cyclone moves over into Georgia, even though it's over land, the center is, it's still going to get a large feed of moisture being pulled in from the Gulf Stream right into the system. So it's still a tremendous amount of rain, and your strongest winds are going to remain on the eastern side, even though it is on land. So the weakening process, yes, will happen, but I don't think it's going to be dramatic because it's not a mountainous area. If this is a mountainous area, it would tear the system apart and it would weaken rapidly. This is going to be a gradual weakening trend. The speed is key on just how quickly that happens. If it slows down a little more, it could cause more flooding issues, but also has a chance to weaken rapidly. If it speeds up too fast, it will still be a healthy system when it reemerges. So a lot of questions yet on how this is going to play out over the holiday weekend, but Florida right now just needs to get ready for the storm surge and the heavy rain. And this is where it gets weird because, Hermine has done everything as the models have predicted. Where does it go once it gets out here? Because it senses our trough that came through here, yes, but we're getting a ridge to build back into the area as we head into next week, Monday and Tuesday. So it's trying to sense a blocking pattern northeast of Nova Scotia, and it's detecting whether or not it's going to stall itself out or try to go back toward the coast again before it finally will get the shove and head out to sea. And how close it's going to get to the northeast is going to be interesting. Here is the RPM model showing you. First off, this is the loop. It brings it on shore at about that time, a bit closer to Panama City, by the way, not so much into the Big Bend, but around Panama City around 2 or 3 in the morning. Moves it just a bit more west than what the Hurricane Center has over central Georgia. In fact, it brings the center over Columbia, South Carolina, and then over Raleigh. Notice a lot of the rain is not there on the west side, because again, the west and southwest side, typically the drier side, this is where your stronger winds, the heavier rain will be, and the tornado threats. The tornado threats can be limited to the immediate coast, depending on how much the center tracks inland would determine the tornado threat, or if it stays offshore. And then here are the wind speeds too. Well, this is another model run of the same thing. Sorry about that, I hit a duplicate. But you can see the nice little spinning motion. I mean, it may very well develop an eye, by the way, before it makes landfall later tonight. But we have to use the infrared to see it because we won't have the visible satellite since it'll be dark. All right, then you can see after that the wind fields. I got them overlaid on the Futurecast. You can see it's showing tropical storm force winds in a very broad area, very broad cyclone at this point. But this is the GFS. You can see how it does get awful close to Long Island and the Jersey Shore. This is not like anything like Sandy or anything like that, but it's going to be potentially a significant hazard, though, for Labor Day for the beaches in this area that still are trying to recover, by the way, from Sandy. They really don't want to deal with this on a holiday weekend in the Northeast, but that potential is there. Okay, enough of that. Let's get to our weather here. Our cold front came through yesterday. This is more of a moisture boundary, dew point boundary that is moving through. So it's enough moisture. It's basically the end of the humidity, if you will. Not so much a temperature front, but a humidity front. And it is moving into southern Kentucky. Still can't rule out some thunderstorms that may try to develop because the boundary itself, the clouds and rain a little bit ahead of where it is. It's still located about in through here along northern Kentucky. So if these clouds get thin out in southern Kentucky, there still could be some late day thunderstorms that could develop as a result. But otherwise, beautiful weather to the north. Now you're going to see some blue sky briefly, but it won't take long to get the cumulus field, the fair weather cumulus, to replace that because there is still some low level moisture there in Indiana. Not completely dry. So once you get the sun hitting that low level moisture will develop in these little small flat cumulus clouds. The deeper moisture, the brighter green, southern Kentucky, that is where your rain chance will be today. And even then, it's going to be a small rain chance. Here is the HRRR model showing that potential for some thinning of the cloud cover. Then again, you get the reaction of some downpours that may react to that along and south of the parkways. And then we're in the clear. Beautiful weather. Your earliest alert. I'm going to go into more detail on this maybe tomorrow, but more so next week. I'm not going to rush on this. But, we got the cool wave now. We are going to heat up as the holiday weekend goes on. In fact, we will flirt with 90 all the way into, I would say, mid or latter portions of next week. But then there's another front that is going to drop down. And the Euro and GFS differ on how deep of a trough we're talking about. The Euro is more like just a glancing blow of cool air. It moves in here about mid-month. And GFS is sharper, but a lot quicker with it, moving in, moving out. We'll see how it plays out. I do see the pattern becoming a little more amplified as far as a shortwave pattern, not long wave. So we may very well see some activity developing in our area. With several cold fronts, so warm spells, but a lot of cool snaps. What I'm trying to say here, if this is indeed the case, then the 90s that we have coming for Labor Day and early next week may very well be our last 90s of the season, if this pattern holds true. Okay, that's it for now, guys. Tired. First day of September, and I'm tired. The calendar's moving too fast. So enjoy your day, and I will see you guys tomorrow.